Okay. So I'm hoping that the lighting is good this time because I have my light to the side of me, and I'm hoping that that's better than last time. I felt like the video was dark, but it didn't look dark from my view. So hopefully this is better. Okay, I'm just going to bring it up on my laptop here real quickly. Okay. Okay, let's see. From here it looks fine. Okay, let's see. From here it looks fine. Okay, except for my water bottle's in the way. Let's move that. Okay. So today's topic is going to be how to advocate for yourself. How to advocate for yourself. Okay. How to advocate for yourself during your pregnancy, during your birthing, and postpartum. So I know that I posted a question on my Facebook, Instagram, and on here about America's stance on supporting moms postpartum, so like financially. But I am saving that question, I think, for next week, just because I want to give a little bit more time for people to answer, if anyone will answer within this next week, and then we can go into that topic. But I have gotten some pretty good and juicy answers so far, so I really can't wait to talk about that. But the topic for this week is about advocating for yourself, or learning how to advocate for yourself. So before we get started with that, though, my last live last week, that was about the things that I'm enjoying again now that I'm not pregnant. And I forgot there was 2 more things I wanted to add. I know I said I was going to add it in the description box, but I know a lot of people don't read those, so I figured I'd just add them here for this video. And one of the things that I'm enjoying now a lot is not having to pee a billion times a day. That is so annoying. I hated that so much, especially at the end where it was like as soon as I fell asleep, I had to wake up and go pee again. So, like as baby gets bigger and puts more pressure on your bladder, then you just have to, relieve yourself pretty often, Hey, Mom. Thanks for joining the live again. So, yeah, the frequent urge to pee is just kind of a nuisance throughout the whole entire pregnancy. In the beginning, it's due to hormones, and then, of course, as baby puts more weight on your bladder, that's one of the things that gets smushed in addition to your lungs. So shortness of breath, definitely. I am enjoying not being short of breath. And there was one other thing. Oh, sleeping on my stomach. Yana said she was first. Oh, hey, Dad. Hey, Yana. Thank y'all for coming on here. So yes, I am enjoying being able to sleep on my stomach again. I don't always, because like I said, me and my baby do co-sleep. So when we're co-sleeping, I sleep on my side. So we're chest to chest. But when I do have him in his bassinet, I get to sleep on my stomach, and I am enjoying that so much because I am a stomach sleeper. So those were the 2 things that I forgot for that last video. Okay. But moving on to today's topic. So how to advocate for yourself, learning how to advocate for yourself. And what's that? So during your pregnancy, during your birth, and postpartum, while you're in that postpartum period. So that's like the first year after you give birth, and then beyond that, as a mom now. And I wrote some notes just so I kind of stay on topic and I don't like go off. But we'll see if we can just stick to these here. But there's more. But the 4 main ones I want to do today. So let's do the first one, which I feel is pretty important, is to, oh yes, thank you. If you could thumbs up this video, I definitely would appreciate it. To do your own research and to educate yourself. I think that's so important. And even before, like if you plan on being a mom one day and you're not pregnant yet, like get all the knowledge you can. Because I just feel like when you have the information, it makes, when you're going through certain things, not that it makes it easier, but you kind of know some things to expect. So you kind of like, you'll know the lingo when they're saying certain things around you, or what happens during what stage of pregnancy, or like even for like your prenatal appointments, like your first prenatal appointment, certain things are standard, or certain providers may recommend certain things and, you know, stuff like that. So just, I feel like as much as you can research, as much as you can look up, as much as you can maybe like sit down with other moms and, you know, ask them their experiences, and get their feedback on some things. You know, of course, everything's going to be, you know, it's going to be a little bit different once you're actually going through it, but I feel like if you have the knowledge beforehand, it will help so much. So like when I got preeclampsia for my first birth, I had no idea what that was. So they were throwing around this term, and I'm like, at that moment in time, it was brought on really suddenly. I didn't have time to look it up. What does this mean? What does that mean? They're talking about steroid shots. They're talking about inducing, and the baby's gonna be premature. And so I really had no experience with that stuff. I had no idea what they were talking about. And it's funny because at the time, you know, it was my first pregnancy, and I love to read and research anyway. So I went out and bought, you know, pregnancy books and all that stuff, what to expect. And I was working my way through it, but I wasn't done. I was not done. And I found the preeclampsia, you know, section of the book after I delivered. And after she was already home. And I was like, yep, that happened. That makes sense. I understand that now. But in the midst of everything, yes, the more you know. In the midst of everything, it's like you're bombarded with all of these things. You know, what does this mean? What does eclampsia mean? You know, what does, you know, it's just so many things. And, you know, kind of like split second decisions and stuff that you have to make in a moment. So all that to say that if you know kind of what may happen or certain things that happen at certain times of your pregnancy, or, you know, certain like the stages of birth and things like that, you'll be better prepared, and that will help you, you know, throughout that whole entire process, and then afterwards, you know, with your baby as life as a new mom also. And my next point is don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for alternatives. So let's start with the first one. So okay, so how do I want to go about this? Okay, so say you're pregnant, you know, and you may have an OBGYN that you've been going to before you got pregnant. So if you do, then that's great. For me, I did not. So I kind of had to go like based off of recommendations, and, you know, based off of, you know, who was, you know, what provider took my medical insurance. So, you know, I went with them, and I will say that they did good. Yes, I love this. I know it feels a little fall, you know, but I'm so excited for fall, so like I'm gonna wear it anyway. But thank you so much. What was I saying? Providers. Oh, okay. So yes, when it comes to providers, especially for your prenatal care, if you have the time, so like if you find out early in pregnancy and you have the time and you want to, you know, like interview providers, definitely do that. You know, like ask them certain things that may be really important to you. Maybe ask them, oh, thank you so much. I love this hat too. I think Naja gave it to me, and it's kind of hard to fit with my locks now, but I still love it. Ask them, like, you know, if you're really passionate about vaginal births, maybe ask them what their percentages is, what their percentages are for vaginal births, or maybe ask them what their, you know, like if certain things happen, like if you're induced for whatever reason, ask them what their success rate is for a vaginal birth after induction. So like things like that, if you want to interview providers before you actually commit to one, you definitely can. But even if you're in a situation where maybe you didn't pick the provider, maybe you didn't have enough time or whatever, you always can ask questions. Like if you're at a prenatal appointment, a lot of times they're like standard, especially if it's not your first. Sometimes you're just like in and out or whatever. But if you have questions about maybe the things that are being done, if you have questions about like, you know, like how you want to give birth, what positions you can use during birth, how you want to labor, all those kind of things. Tiana, fall is coming. I don't care what y'all talk about. It's coming. I saw the leaves falling from off the trees at the aquarium the other day. I was so excited. I was like, it's right around the corner. But, you know, I enjoy summer as well. But yes, definitely don't be afraid to ask questions, because, you know, that's what they're there for. That's what you're paying them for. And if something just, you know, I'm saying like if something just doesn't like sit right with you, or maybe you don't agree with something, definitely speak up about it. Like don't feel like you can't, or don't feel like you shouldn't, because they're providing you a service, and you're going to them for that service, for their knowledge and their expertise. So ask questions, pick their brains, and more than likely I would say for the most part they're pretty, what's the word I want to say? They'll answer your questions. You shouldn't have any problem with that, hopefully, But again, that goes back to picking a provider that you feel like really comfortable with to ask certain questions. And if you come across something that they may say is standard, or that's their procedure or whatever, ask for alternatives. Like, don't be afraid of that. I know. So one thing, the glucose testing, I know. And I'm not sure if it's always been the sugary drink. For all of my pregnancies, it was. It's important to find caregivers who are a good match for you, who are, it went off of there. It's important to find good caregivers who are a good match to you as much as possible. Yes, you can interview them and move on down the list if you don't click. You need to trust them. Yes, and that's a really big thing. What is trust, really, because childbirth is like one of the most, one of the most like intimate or personal experience that you'll have as a woman. And so you definitely want to make sure that who's ever providing your care, who's ever going to be, with you during that time period, you trust them and their judgment, and you trust, their care that they're providing for you. So yes, you definitely want to make sure that you click. I know for me, I went to a prenatal practice, so it was like 7 different providers, and for them there was like, you meet each one, because when you actually like go into labor or give birth, you may not know who's on. And I wasn't, honestly, I wasn't really a fan of that. Like, if I could do it all over again, I definitely would have tried to pick like someone that stayed with me my whole entire pregnancy. But there were providers that I, cared for more than others. And I just prayed, like, Lord, let this person be the one delivering my baby. And it's funny, for Kenzo, for my third, I got exactly who I wanted. And the birth was just so beautiful, so perfect. If you haven't seen that birth story video, it's on my channel. That's my third birth. But that one went great. And I did like the providers for my other ones. But yes, there were definitely ones that I did not like. And they weren't present for the birth. So, I really got lucky with that. But yes, making sure that you trust that person, because it's such an intimate experience. And, you want to make sure that you feel safe in that kind of environment and situation. And then back to the alternatives. Oh, yeah. So for like the glucose test, I think standard, they have you drink that really sugary drink, and then I think, yeah, they draw your blood first, then you drink it, and then they draw your blood. I think it's an hour after. Now, I never really had problems with the sugar test, I think that's tested for the gestational diabetes. So I didn't have a problem with that, but for my last birth, I just wanted to try something different, just because I like being a rebel. Honestly, that's really why. But I thought it would be good, like, knowledge for me as a doula, to see, what other ways can we go about this. And I've heard some women do, like, where they drink orange juice and they test them. Some providers allow you to have, like, I think like 50 jelly beans, like eating those. And then some will let you pick your own, like, like a sugary breakfast, like pancakes with syrup or whatever, and tell you to come in and then test that way. So there's other ways to do it. So don't feel like, just because they say something is standard or whatever, that you have to do it that way. There's always alternatives, and and even if you don't want to do it at all, you can say that also as well. But yeah, for me, for that one, I chose to do the blood testing. So the daily blood testing, where I had to do the finger sticks or the sugar sticks 4 times a day. And that was not fun. And then at one point I was like, why am I doing this? Because I don't need to do it. But I kind of wanted to just get the experience myself, because, I may have a client who has to do that because they do have gestational diabetes. And then I would be able to say, this is how you do it, this is how you read it, this is how often you should do it, this is how you read your numbers, and if we see any high numbers, to contact, their physician or provider. So I kind of just wanted to get that first-hand experience myself. But also to show that, there are alternatives. You don't have to do everything just so because that's the standard of care. And so that leads me to my next point, which is, remember that they work for you and not the other way around. And I feel like this one is such a big one. I feel like it gets lost a lot, especially in the birth world. And especially, like I said, again, when you're actually in labor itself, because a lot of things can be thrown at you. Good for you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining the live also, for supporting my channel. I definitely appreciate it. But just like, sometimes certain providers, and if you've ever given birth before, you know what I'm saying, some of them are kind of pushy. Some of them will tell you information and make it seem like that's the end of it. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. You do what I say and blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. You're paying them, again, for a service. They are servicing you. And yes, they have the knowledge, they have the expertise, they have the schooling, they have the education, the titles, whatever. But remember, at the end of the day, you're an individual. So if something just doesn't feel right to you, or you just don't want to do something, ask them to provide you alternatives. Ask them to say, ask them what will happen if we do nothing at all. Ask them, just ask them questions if you feel as though you're not comfortable with what they're presenting you with. I know for me, I had one nurse come in for my last birth who was like, I couldn't get out of bed. Well, I can't remember if we had asked her or something, but like when you're going through, you're just like, sometimes you're in the zone. And so that's, again, where like your support people come in and they can help you out. But I think she was like, no, I need to go talk to whoever was in charge to see if I could get out of the bed. And I was like, no, that won't be happening. If I want to get out of the bed, I'm going to get out of the bed, because that's what I need to do. That's what my body needs me to do. So just remember that even though you may be in a hospital, and even if you sign certain forms or whatever, you always have the right to say no to something. You always have the right to say, what's my alternative? You always have the right to say, let's just wait and see, whatever. At the end of the day, yes, you are the mama. Flow with peace. Yes, yes. And, it's your body, it's your baby, and your birth. So just try to keep that in mind. I know some people, some women are a little bit more timid, and they don't want to rock the boat, and they don't want to, be a nuisance or whatever. And I do understand that. And that's why I'm trying to make this video for those women who just sometimes may be a little bit afraid to speak up. But what I always say, or what I always tell my clients, is this kind of, when you're pregnant and when you're going through the childbirth, that kind of prepares you for life as a mom. There may be situations where you have to speak up for your child, or, where you have to fight for your child for certain things, and they're relying on you to do that, especially when they're at an age where they can't speak for themselves and they can't tell you what's wrong and things like that. So you as the mom, you have to do that. So I feel like pregnancy and childbirth definitely prepares you for that. So yes, definitely remember that they are working for you. And what else? There was something else I wanted to say. For my last birth, okay, so for my last birth, I got a lot of pushback from actually the head OB, who wanted me to be induced. And what was her reasoning again? I was going for my third VBAC, and she wanted me to be induced. Like, she basically was trying to tell me that I could not go past 40 weeks pregnant and not be induced, or I would have to have a C-section. She was trying to say, like, if I went into labor after 40 weeks, if I came in labor, I would have to have a C-section. I'm like, that doesn't sound right, And we went back and forth for hours, and basically she just had to throw up her hands and say, well, whatever happens, happens. This is my recommendation. And I kind of had to just, go home and think things over and, weigh the benefits and the risks and everything myself. And I did end up having to be induced just because my fluid was low. Like, I was leaking fluid for about like a week or so. So that's how that happened. But she wasn't going to force me, to be induced if I didn't feel as though I needed to. Like, I told myself, if it came down to, not life or death, but if it came down to I need to do this for my health or for my baby's health, then of course, absolutely, we can do that, And it did lead to a C-section, and we still did that because that was something that needed to be done at that point in time. But if there wasn't any, like, she was trying to say, like, I don't know. She was trying to say, well, the concern obviously was because I had the C-section scar on my uterus, and they didn't. Basically, a lot of times it's liability. Like, they will they would just cover you in red tape because of liability reasons, which I understand. A lot of people sue hospitals and sue doctors and things like that, but that's what their insurance is for. Like, don't push these things on me because, again, I'm an individual, and I know, there's numbers and research and all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, talk to me like a person. You know what I mean? Like a human being. Like, don't just tell me this is what I have to do because the studies show this or they show that or whatever. And so I basically was like, nope. We're gonna wait and see, but yeah, all that to say, just make sure that you remember that it's not the other way around. They're not like your teacher and you're a student at a school or something like that, or it's not that kind of a situation. This is a situation where you're coming to them, to make sure that you and your baby are doing well, but at the end of the day, you do make the final decisions, for you and for your body. And oh yeah, so that's the last thing. Well, another thing I want to talk about kind of on the same topic is that to know your rights, to know I don't want to get too search for all the laws for your state and all that stuff, but just know that your rights as a human being, that you have the right to say no, that you have the right to decline service or to decline their recommendation, and you have the right to, nothing should be happening to you or without your consent, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I know a lot of times that happens during prenatal appointments where women will come in and they say, I don't know, maybe they'll say, get undressed and we're going to do a vaginal exam today. We're going to check, just to see how far along you are dilated or whatever the case may be. You may think that you have to do it, but if you're not comfortable with doing it, you don't have to do it. And honestly, checking for dilation in pregnancy, it really doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? You can be 2 centimeters for 2 months, and it doesn't mean you're close to labor. It doesn't mean your labor will be faster than someone else's who's not dilated. It really is not a good indicator for really anything before labor starts. So that's one of those things. That's one of those checks that I declined pretty much the whole entire pregnancy because I know it didn't show me anything. I got one check one time and I got a sweep with that, but I allowed her to. She asked, and then I was like, I kind of didn't want to do it. But at that point I was overdue. So I was like, yes, we'll do anything at that point to kind of bring on labor or induce labor as naturally as possible. So, in that situation, that's okay if they ask permission. But I have heard some horror stories where women are being they'll do the stretch and sweep without their permission when they're doing a regular vaginal exam. So I'm certain things like that, you kind of just have to be on the lookout for. And again, every woman's background is different. They could be a woman that's been sexually abused and then a doctor is doing a stretch and sweep without their consent. So there's a lot of trauma that can happen during birth and during your pregnancy. So you just kind of want to make sure that that you can say no to anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, anything that you just really don't feel like doing. Honestly, we're looking out for our baby's safety, and we will, for the most part, put them first, but certain things that you don't want to do, or certain things that you just are not comfortable with shouldn't be done without your consent. That's what I'm trying to say. So don't feel like you can't say no. And even if you sign certain papers, so I know in a hospital, when you're admitted, especially if you have a C-section, you sign a waiver for that, or you sign a paper for that saying, yes, I know I'm having a C-section, and it'll list your cause, it'll list things that can happen during C-section and all that stuff. But I'm saying even if you get to the hospital and you sign all these papers and you decide later on that you want to change your mind, or you decide that you don't want to do a certain thing at all, just know that that's okay. You definitely can do that because that's your right. Even if you sign papers for induction to labor and then halfway through say, you know what, this is not working for me, I want to leave, you can do that also as well. I mean, in the moment you may just be like, let's just do it, let's just get this baby out of me, but just know that you can do that if you wanted to. I remember I tell this story all the time for my third pregnancy. So I would think I was 41 weeks exactly, I think, and I was scheduled for a C-section. And I remember talking to the OB because I didn't really want a C-section, but they didn't want me to go too far overdue because, again, I was trying to VBAC. So I went to the hospital that morning, and she basically said that, you know, if you come in labor, if you come in dilated, we can start like a light induction. So that's just like giving me a little bit Pitocin to kind of like put me into full-blown labor. So I went in with my mom, but I was like, look, if I'm not in labor and they don't, you know, help me out, or they don't give me the Pitocin or refuse it, then we're just going to leave. We're just going to walk out and leave. And I don't even care. And I was so serious because I'm like, I'm not going to allow them just to give me a C-section because that's what they want to do because, you know, my time ran out or whatever on my pregnancy. So I was having contractions, you know, that morning. So I was hoping that things were going along. And when they checked me, when they took me back to triage, they're like, yeah, you're 3 centimeters. So if you want to start the Pitocin, we can start it and we can, you know, get this ball rolling. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So yeah, just know that in certain situations, you had the final say over your body and over your baby. So just remember that, and remember that implied consent, you know, just remember that you can always, even if you give consent, you can always say no later on down the line. So don't be afraid of that. And even if, you know, they roll their eyes at you, even if they say, well, in my expertise, you shouldn't be doing such and such, just remember that you can do that. And then the last one that I want to go over is to trust your intuition and to listen to your body. So that is so key. Like if you haven't heard anything else that I said this whole entire video, definitely trust your intuition, because a lot of times things will happen in our bodies and our bodies are trying to tell us things. And sometimes we don't listen, or sometimes the doctors tell us one thing and we're like, but I know how I'm feeling right now. I know what I need to do. And my mom always tells this story when she had Tynasia, I think. So that was her 6th child, I think. That she said when she felt the urge to push, she just felt like she just wanted to run and just squat down and get her out that way. You know, and so just know that there's other options for pretty much anything that you want to think of when it comes to birth. There's different positions that you can actually push in. There's different positions that you can labor in. Like, you don't have to be on your back the whole time if you don't want to, and you don't have to deliver on your back, you know. I forget what the position is called, but in that position, you know, that most women, you know, give birth in. So just know that you can always do something different, but trust how your body feels. So for my second birth, I did deliver on my back, and that wasn't a problem for me. It actually felt comfortable because I was in labor for a long time, and by the time it came time to push, I was exhausted. So I honestly don't see how I could have pushed in any other position than that. But for my third, it was really short. It was so, like, start to finish was like 6 hours. And I knew I wanted to use the squatting bar. So I made sure that, you know, it was in my birth plan. And I made sure that when it came time for me to push, I was like, where's that squat bar? You know, I want to use it. And it kind of had to like run around and look for it. Like, they didn't know exactly where it was because a lot of women don't ask for it or don't use it. But once they got it and put that bad boy up, it was the best birth ever. It was so easy. It was so nice to just grab the handlebars at the top and just bear down, and I was in the squat position, and it was just like, it was like butter. Like, not to say it didn't hurt, because it did hurt. But it was nice. But I really trusted my body in that process. I really trusted the whole birthing process. I trusted the whole laboring process, and I did what felt, you know, right at the time, or, you know, throughout the whole entire labor. I did also for my previous labor, or my last one, for my fourth. But it was a point in the labor where I could just feel that things were not going right. Like, the contractions, they were getting a little bit stronger, but I could just tell that the baby wasn't moving down. Like, to me, it felt like the baby, like Asa was stuck. And I don't know, I still don't know to this day if, you know, maybe he had the cord wrapped around him and that kept him from descending. I honestly think, you know, because I've had all of my children pretty much back to back, and I just feel like things weren't in alignment. Like even now, I'm almost 5 months postpartum, and I'm having a lot of lower back pain and like my tailbone and everything. And so, like, if I stand for a really long time, it really hurts really bad. So I'm thinking that maybe something wasn't aligned and he wasn't able to get out. And so, you know, I just felt like after a while, I could not feel him moving down anymore. And I did stay stuck at 5 centimeters for like almost a whole entire day. And it was like, you know, But at that time, I had some other complications. If you want all the information on that, you can check out my birth story. But that's what I mean about trusting your intuition and trusting your body. So when it came time for them to do the C-section, I wasn't like, I didn't try everything, or I feel like it was forced on me. Like, we literally tried everything, but I could just tell that I don't know what wasn't right, but I could just tell that something wasn't right. But yeah, if you have a situation like that, I also want to say, especially for postpartum, if you are experiencing if you're experiencing anything that seems out of the norm for you, for specifically like your body, make sure you get that checked out. And if people aren't listening to you, make them listen to you. Like, if you even if you have to go to different hospitals or different doctors or the emergency room or whatever, make sure people listen, especially postpartum. I want to say that. I want to point that out because that first year postpartum it's a really critical time in women's lives. I don't think it gets enough credit for just how much our bodies go through during a childbirth and labor and a pregnancy and all of that. But postpartum really is as much as well, because your body is recovering from the birth. It's recovering from those extra hormones that you had. If you're breastfeeding, your body is still recovering and producing different hormones for that. So yeah, it's a lot to take in, and your body does have a lot of adjusting to do for those 9 months of the pregnancy and then the birth itself. And birth, either way you have it, a vaginal or a C-section, is trauma on the body. So your body has to repair, it has to heal, all of those kinds of things. And if you see something that just doesn't feel right or like look right, or you can't put your finger on it, like, definitely get it checked out. For me, I had really bad swelling this time. Like, it was so bad. Like, I had swelling with my first, and my first also was a C-section, but it was nothing compared to this time. And I know, like, the swelling started at my feet kind of, I think, the day that I left the hospital, so like 2 days postpartum. And I was like, I hope it doesn't get too bad this time. But it did. It went all the way up my calves, all the way up my thighs, all the way up to like my waist. And I was so scared because I was like, I think I was feeling like if I went to sleep, I was going to swell all the way up and my throat was going to close up and I was going to die. Like, that's just how I felt. And it was really, really bad. And it made me so depressed, honestly. And I could not, that swelling lasted for me for like 4 weeks. And I'm looking up things and I'm like, how long is this normal? I'm not saying that right, but how normal is this and for how long, basically? And so every time I went to a prenatal appointment, I mentioned it, and it was like, it's okay. Okay, let me see. On your back isn't natural for most unless you're exhausted. Yeah, if you can kneel or squat, gravity will help. Historically, it's how many cultures give birth. C-section is a lifesaver when needed. Yes to all of that. Excellent. I understand you. It's good to ask these questions and take care of yourself. Yeah, so I don't know if you know the history of why women give birth on their back, but in your free time, if you want to, you can look that up. I don't know, that may be a little too raunchy for me to say it here on this channel, but it's not the optimal position to give birth in, and it totally defies gravity. And it's just, when you think about like instinctively what you want to do in that situation, it's not lay on your back, So yes, it can help if you're exhausted and tired. It's really, I feel like, a good position. But other than that, it kind of is counterproductive. And the reason why some women maybe tear, or why some women have a longer pushing stage of their labor, because it doesn't help. It fights gravity, I want to say. I don't want to say it doesn't help, because women have delivered babies in that position. But yeah, other positions definitely are far better than that. And yeah, I'm very grateful for C-sections. Like, for my C-section was life-saving. And for this one that I just had, it wasn't life-saving, but it was definitely necessary. And so I'm so grateful for it. And I have a different kind of view, a different kind of love for C-sections, because even though I did not want to do it, I did not. I'm very grateful for it. And I do want to do a video kind of like on my updated thoughts about C-sections, so definitely stay tuned for that. Yes, ask questions and take care of yourself. Yeah, and again, back to postpartum, because a lot of things are happening kind of like all at once, and because you are like sleep deprived, and you're taking care of this baby, you may be having issues with breastfeeding. It's so much that you're going through all at one time that you can kind of put yourself on a back burner. Looking forward to that updated video. Yes, I definitely want to get that out because I kind of want to be honest about how I felt about them before versus now, especially when it comes to like VBAC and C-sections. So yes, definitely stay tuned for that one. But yeah, postpartum. What was I saying? Oh yes, when you put yourself on the back burner, you may not even notice certain things that are going on. Oh, and another thing for me, so my iron was low, I would say like through the later stages of my pregnancy, and then it just kept progressively getting lower and lower and lower. And then after birth, I had to have like the iron infusion. So things like that, like if you feel like really sleepy, or I mean, you're going to be sleepy with a newborn, but if you feel like extremely sleepy, like even if you get sleepy and you're like, no matter how much sleep I get, I'm still sleepy, something could be wrong there. So a lot of times we could have like hormonal imbalances, especially after giving birth. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel like it did too, for me too. So yeah, I might even ask you how you feel about it too, and then maybe I can add that to my video, because that would be cool to see that too. But yes, definitely, especially postpartum, definitely make sure that you, as much as you can, you're staying on top of your health and your sleep and your eating and all that stuff, and listening to your body, because especially in the US, so this is kind of segueing a little bit to my next slide, but in the US, our mortality rate for moms postpartum, so again, that's that first 1 year after birth, is really high. It's really, really, really high. And even in the state of New Jersey where I live, I think we rank like, it's not funny, but we rank like number 47 for the highest birth, infant mortality and mortality for moms. So the numbers are just so discouraging. And then when you factor in being a black mom or a mom of color, they're even more discouraging. And so there's a lot of things that contribute to that, and I will definitely touch on that in my next live. But listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right, get it checked up. I know we have our postpartum appointments 6 weeks postpartum, and honestly, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's just not enough. You got to think, when you're pregnant, you're meeting your OB like every other month. In the beginning, I think it's every month. And towards the end, you're going every 2 weeks, and then every week until you deliver. And then we have one postpartum visit, and then boop, you're free to go. It's just not enough. It's not equivalent. It's just not, So there's a big disconnect between like birthing and postpartum. And I just really want to help moms as much as I can, especially for that period, because it's a lot that you're dealing with and that you're going through, and sometimes people don't understand why you may be reacting the way you are, or why your emotions may be all over the place, why you may have PPD. Like, some people think you can control it, and it's just, like I said, I'm kind of segueing into my next video, but I just want you to know that you can definitely speak up for yourself. If you have access to a doula, if you have, if you have like word of mouth, someone who had a doula and they speak very highly of their doula for their pregnancy, maybe reach out to that same person as well. I know for me, I worked for community-based doulas, so we were free, provided from their insurance. So, you can look into things like that too. And just really quickly before I get off, I just want to say what a doula is. So a doula is a birth support person for mom, but for the whole family as well. That is with you from the moment you hire her, from the moment you find out you're pregnant, all the way through your birth, your pregnancy, and postpartum also as well, if they provide postpartum services, because not all of them do. But that person is with you for the whole thing, so that person, is there for that physical support. You'll probably go over your previous pregnancies. If you've had children before, you'll go over, your birth plan, what things you want to happen during your birth, what things you don't want to happen. And so during the birth process, the doula can help you, because they can help you maybe remember those kind of things, maybe help you remember questions that you may have if you're at your prenatal appointments. Maybe you forgot, you know, and it's something you guys talked about together, and it can just, you know, when the provider leaves the room, just kind of, you know, nudge you and say, hey, then you want to ask about so-and-so? I know I do that a lot. And they'll be like, oh, excuse me. They'll be like, you know, oh yeah, I forgot that I wanted to ask that, you know. So certain things like that, because in a moment, again, like I said, sometimes you forget, or sometimes you get nervous or whatever, but we're there to kind of like help you, as you're speaking up for yourself. So not to speak for you. We're not there to be like, hey, my client needs you to do so and so, you know, not like that. Not a good doula anyway, but we're there to help you, and definitely, again, as that physical support during birth. So like for my clients, I was there from the moment they called me until the moment the baby was delivered. And it is a lot, you know, but it's so beautiful to be there in the room when the baby finally, you know, comes out. And even if it's a C-section, because I've been there for those too, it's so beautiful. It's so rewarding. So I just want to encourage you, whether you have a doula or not, to don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because remember, it's your body, your baby, and your birth. So thank you so much for watching today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for all the lovely comments. I can't wait to go back and read them. And yes, stay tuned for my live next Friday at 9. Hopefully we get some more questions in there, or some more answers in there. But I do have, the ones that I have now so far are pretty good also as well. And if you have any more questions on this topic, you can leave it down in the description box of this video. I always read, you know, the comments and everything like that. So definitely leave me a comment. Yes, me too. I can't wait. I really can't wait to talk about that, because that's going to be some good stuff. But again, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe if you are already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.